Unfortunately, societies are built on the back of slaves. There can be a utopian scenario where it becomes like a renaissance and we become an artistic culture, or it can become a dystopian scenario where we're literally just running on universal basic income, monitored and controlled like cattle, and we go into a pretty...
They probably have good intentions.
They're doing what they're told. It only takes 15 years to recondition a population. There's an anime called Psychopaths that I recommend everybody watch, and it's this AI that is like 100 or 1,000 brains of different people of society, criminals, billionaires, peasants, everything, and it forms what is supposed to be the controlled neutral mind, but it's not neutral. It's extremely biased. And in the anime, it kind of shows you that entire narrative of a credit system, of a mental check, of a daily pill that they need to consume to manage their mental level and their mood. So civilization has always flourished when the working class are subjugated and they are enslaved, and that's how you build societies. Unfortunately, societies are built on the back of slaves, and today we just have modern day slaves.
Once you learn that these companies or these businesses don't have your best interest in mind when they're propagandizing you with just marketing ads, but commercials, ads on Facebook. I mean, dude, those are not there to make your life better, even though that's the feeling you're supposed to get intentionally from the ad.
Can I tell you something crazy?
Yes.
So I went to
please.
Okay, so I go to Michael Phelps' Instagram. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, there's something super crazy. What the fuck is Michael Phelps doing a paid partnership with who?
No way. Pfizer?
With Pfizer. So here you have Michael Phelps saying, I'm doing a paid partnership with Pfizer. It says ad, #ad. And what does he categorize himself with? It wasn't until recently that I learned my struggle with depression. How many people have depression, right? So it's a big blanket statement. The next character, right? Who's this chick?
Is that the Lindsey Vonn lady?
No, look at the...
Oh, it's Pink?
Yeah, so you have Pink. And once again,
can't believe I just mixed it.
Who's the paid partnership?
I mean, they're getting after
Pfizer.
Sure.
And what does she say? She says, unfortunately, I was unaware of this for the first time when I got COVID-19. What was she unaware? That she had asthma her entire life. How many people have asthma, right? So it takes all these different people to promote different kind of macro scenarios.
It's like my medic desire.
And it's like, what the fuck, dude? If this was such a crisis, why are you running ads? It makes no sense. People should be running to the stores if people were dying and falling dead right next to you. And
this
it's
is
kind of
only
like
in America, isn't it?
It's a tricky situation,
with
brother.
Pharmaceutical ads.
Yes, America's really, really, really bad. I think about 60 to 70% of people in the United States have chronic illnesses, whereby 100 years ago it was sub 10%.
This is like I believe in this because it's like my medic desire. Like humans are mimicking creatures. If I see someone do something and I think it's cool, subconsciously I'll start like doing that same thing. Whether it's the way they move their body, the way they said something, tonality. Like that's how we learn as kids. We're just copying our parents' movements. And so that theory makes a lot of sense. And so if you guys don't see this stuff, you don't understand what we're talking about. It's because you haven't studied psychology. You haven't studied human behavior. You're all on TikTok. You're all distracted all the time. And I think that is the best skill you have when AI comes.
The reason you are on TikTok is because somebody understands the psychology of a 13-year-old, and TikTok is designed to keep you on the app.
Every decision.
When you scroll to refresh and you slide your thumb down and it does the refresh, it's supposed to mimic when you pull the roulette, right, in the casino, because you don't know what's the next video that's going to pop up, right? So you get a dopamine hit. So every time you swipe down, like the casino, cha-ching machine, right? Dopamine hit, dopamine hit, dopamine. You are literally not addicted to TikTok. You're addicted to dopamine hits. And if TikTok had their best interest in mind, or all these other social media platforms, they wouldn't be hiring psychologists to figure out how can we keep people on our app. But I understand
the social dilemma.
But I understand the business side of it, right? TikTok is competing with Snapchat. Snapchat is competing with IG. So there's
fiduciary duty, you know?
There's a lot of technocrats, right, or heads of these big companies that don't necessarily 100% fuck with the other companies, or they want to be the top dog. So you have a lot of rivalries, and I understand the capitalistic side of it, but we also have to be able to address the other side of it.
Okay, this is a great segue for what we're talk about. So one, social skills, I think that's gonna be the most important thing because everyone's diminishing that. If you study psychology, study persuasion, study how to talk
how
to
people work,
make people feel good when they interact with you, that's gonna be very valuable when AI is doing all the crafts, all the hard skills. But let's assume that AI is doing all these blue collar, white collar, doctors, lawyers, everything. They can diagnose you to the T, no debate. We all understand they're better. So in our society right now, a lot of money is made in inefficiencies in markets based on these skills. And the reason a lot of people are incentivized to pursue these things is so they can make money, and money gives them status. Okay. So let's say we're on a universal basic income. AI is doing everything. We're all paid $4,000 a month. How do we gain status?
So status, I think it's an important one. I think status is earned by doing things that most people can't do.
Okay.
Right. So if you look at, for example, Michael Phelps, he's used on the ad of Pfizer. Why? Because he's a person of influence. Why is he a person
at swimming ever.
Exactly. So he has 25 plus gold medals, right? So he's a person of influence.
But what drives you to be that good of a swimmer if there's no money, monetary gain?
I think
solely status.
I mean,
admiration.
I mean, that's the assumption that everybody does stuff for money. Like if you look at these guys that are paragliding for Red Bull, making $3,000 a month,
yeah,
just like going crazy through the, like they're doing it out of straight passion.
Yeah.
So I think there can be a utopian scenario where it becomes like a renaissance and we become an artistic culture, or it can become a dystopian scenario where we're literally just running on universal basic income. We are monitored and controlled like cattle, and we go into a pretty nefarious future. It all comes down to us. Right. And that's the reality of the situation. There's players on both ends. There's bad players, but then there's also good players. And good and evil is also, once again, an iffy scenario, because what may be evil to one person may be phenomenal for another guy. Right. So a person that comes from a country or background where globalization is normal, right? The entire World Economic Forum Davos agenda that's taken place is okay. It's normal. It makes sense to them. But if you come, let's say, from the United States and you're like, I'm a freedom dude, I like slinging my guns, right? I like shooting in the range. I like going hunting. I like fishing. I'm doing whatever.
It's your culture, yeah.
Yeah, fuck globalization, right? So I understand that perspective as well. So this good and evil is also a spectrum of perception. And I think we also need to be careful with that. I think we need to have these conversations, and these platforms need to enable these conversations in a way that is healthy, right? Because if you don't do it, people will dissent, because people are not stupid. And I think people are waking up to a lot of the realities of how the world works. And I think we need to do a better job at disseminating this information in a way that is unbiased. And we do that by looking at things from multiple perspectives and not holding on to your perspective as the ultimate truth.
So important.
Yeah.
So I was talking to this with Arlen Moore on Twitter last night, and there's like two routes you could go, I feel like. Like we could either the metaverse happens, we're in VR worlds where we can achieve status in this digital world, and our everyday life is everyone lives in like pods. It's the same. All your essentials are taken care of. Or we go to the artistic, everyone's just doing it for the purpose of the craft. But even then, how many people could be like, there's still needs, that's still like, now it's 0.0001% of every
yes
field.
Now, but that's based off of how people
like
are raised in
level,
culture.
bro.
But that's based off of how people are raised in culture. If you actually think about it, if you look at the American school system, right, it's based on the Prussian school system to develop what? Soldiers and workers. So if you look at how the school system is in the United States, dude, right now, Google some videos on, just put high school cafeteria. It looks like a prison.
100%.
It looks like a prison. You're under fluorescent lights. You're concrete walls. The fuck are you doing in a concrete wall? Why are these kids not going outside?
Optimal cost budget, like.
But it's not about that. It's about conditioning, right? It's about conditioning, because there's somebody that's dictating the books that are being.
I want to make this clear. The person you're talking about is the top of the top of the top person. Every other person, like people in the organization, people in the district board, people in the state, they probably have good intentions, and they're just doing what they think is right.
They're doing what they're told,
Exactly.
and that's how most people operate, right? If I talk to a ton of people, a lot of the reasons they do what they do is because there's repercussions in their real life if they don't abide.
Yeah.
So,
and they're self-interested.
And that's where I think entrepreneurship is important. That's my philosophy on entrepreneurship is a lifestyle of freedom, right? And you don't have to be out here making 50 grand, 100 grand a month, $1 million a month to live the life of an entrepreneur. But fuck you if I want to do something and I can't do it because you're going to fire me, right? Because that's not freedom.
I could never.
Exactly. But most people have fear, and the fear is built up in the system, right? Where is it built up? The fear of failure. As soon as you're a kid, you're not encouraged to fail.
Yeah.
You're reprimanded. You get an F. Dude, imagine calling a child a failure. It makes no sense. It's absolutely ridiculous. So every time in their life, they're conditioned that if they don't listen and obey the rules, they're failures. So what happens if they're about to break out of the mold and go work their own company, build their own? Dude, the pressure is massive. But that's all conditioning. But imagine the school system was now based on like a Renaissance artistic self-development, pursue your highest potential kind of Greek ecosystem. Now you're conditioning society to operate that way. But there was I think his name was Yuri. I can't pronounce his last name, but he was a former Russian spy, and he talks about how Russia infiltrated the American school system and the university system, and that it only takes 15 years to recondition a population, right? So you also have to understand that there's
That's optimistic.
that there's other people and with other agendas in other countries or in your own country that are working really hard and are extremely powerful to see their narrative come through. And there's a lot of butting of heads, and that's kind of why we see all these clashes in the world take place. It's a big ego battle for power and dominion over humanity. That's the truth.